Hi, I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Pig Health Today, and with me is David Baumert. He is a technical service veterinarian at Zoetis, but you haven't been there that long. Before that, you were at Cargill.
Yes, I was. I spent almost 12 years with Cargill, now JBS Live Pork.
Now, at Cargill, I know that you were doing a lot of what is known as batch farrowing. Just before we get into that, just for the benefit of our viewers, please give us your definition of that.
Sure. So I would define batch farrowing as a management process whereby instead of breeding a small segment of sows every week on an ongoing basis, we're going to go ahead and breed a relatively large percentage of the sow herd, say 20% of the sow herd, in a relatively short period of time. So we're going to take, for example, a month's worth of traditional breedings. We're going to breed all those sows within the first week of the month.
Okay.
And subsequently, we're going to farrow and then wean that same large group of sows in a very, very short time frame. Batch farrowing as opposed to ongoing, continuous breeding, weaning, and farrowing.
So this creates more of an all-in, all-out situation for farrowing? What's the objective?
So yes, it does create all-in, all-out within a farrowing group. We're trying to get to the same advantages that we recognize in grow finish, where we have all-in-out nurseries or all-in, all-out wean to finish. We're trying to capture that same technology in a farrowing situation. Rather than having small, medium, and large pigs scattered all the way down the farrowing hallway, we're trying to get all these pigs farrowed in a short period of time and then subsequently grown and then weaned all in the same period of time, so that we actually have a gap between next month's pigs starting the next farrowing batch.
And I would imagine that disease management is the primary goal if you're comparing it to all in, all out.
Yes, it is. Yeah, disease management and the disease management will show up, the advantages of disease management will show up both in the farrowing room and also in the downstream flow of pigs, and we can go either way on those types of discussions.
And it seems like it's a really sensible approach, but not many people are doing that in the industry. What's holding them back?
Well, there's the question of applicability. The advantage of batch farrowing is to take what I would consider, if we look at a picture of a system, if you have a system built on a number of small farms, then traditionally a person would have to gather piglets from a number of those farms to fill a nursery in a reasonable period of time. That commingling those pigs creates health issues and stress among the pigs. If we reorganize that situation to where those relatively small independent farms would farrow large batches of pigs at a time, we can cut down the number of pigs going into a nursery. So in other words, we would put 2 or at most 3 groups of piglets in a nursery and fill it in a relatively short period of time. Not everyone does that because in some situations farms are established as rather large units. For example, a 5,000 sow unit. A 5,000 sow unit independently weaning pigs, even on a traditional weekly basis, can fill a rather large nursery all by itself. So for them, it doesn't really apply. But where we do have small farms that can cooperate and batch farrow, we can take advantage of these health advantages.
And when you say small farms, define what you mean there.
Sure. So a small farm that applies well to a batch farrowing situation will be a sow farm that has 700 to 1,000 sows. That type of a farm in a traditional system would only be weaning 200 to 300 pigs a week, not nearly enough to sufficiently fill a nursery in a tight time frame. If we take that same, say, 1,200 sow farm, and if we batch farrow, where they accumulate a month's worth of breedings all in 1 week, and subsequently a month's worth of weanings all in 1 week, that same 1,200 sow farm, as opposed to weaning 500 or 600 pigs, would wean 2,500 pigs. Wow. That's a convenient size to fill a nursery in short order. And of course, then the other farms within the system will fill nurseries other weeks, and in time we get back to where this 1,200 sow farm, it's their turn in the rotation, and they fill another whole nursery in short order. So the 1,000 head sow farms work very well.
Yeah. So, and I can see the benefit to pig flow, but again, getting back to disease management, what benefits have you experienced with batch farrowing?
So what I've seen, it actually starts in the farrowing crate itself. On a traditional farm, we typically have the situation where we are going to be weaning pigs out because it's wean day for a portion of the pigs on the farm. And as we move those pigs out, of course, we want to efficiently get those farrowing crates washed, cleaned, and disinfected before the next sows come in. Unfortunately, oftentimes we have a farrowing room where half or 2/3 of the pigs are eligible to wean this week, and in an effort to try and wash those crates, we have other pigs still on the farm. We're not able to do an efficient job. Now we compare this to picking a day of the week where we empty every farrowing crate on the farm. Again, these 1,000 or 1,200 head sow farms, they have 200 farrowing crates, rough ballpark numbers. When we can go in there on 1 or 2 days and wash 200 farrowing crates with no residual pigs left behind, when we wash 200 farrowing crates, then we know that when we start the next week's farrowing, we have 200 washed, cleaned, and disinfected crates. So even something as simple as washing crates is more efficient, more effective when we can do the whole farm at one time.
Would there be particular diseases that would be better controlled by taking this approach?
Well, certainly our routine scour issues in baby piglets, the E. coli's and the rotaviruses are better controlled if we can wash every farrowing crate within the system. But we've also, I've had experience also seeing both disease control and elimination programs involving the respiratory diseases, the flu viruses, PRRS, PED, which is again an enteric disease. We've seen all of those diseases either better controlled or eliminated more quickly when we can get into a farm system where every 30 days we move every baby pig off the farm. Those breaks every 30 days, having that break in the population of naive piglets on the farm helps us, whether our goal is control or elimination. It helps in a number of both respiratory or enteric diseases.
So it helps with flow, it helps with health status. What about the actual performance of the sows and the number of piglets that are born and the health of those piglets?
Well, performance depends on how you count it. So it's kind of an accounting or a barn-specific counting method. There are farms that have what appears to be very good production records on paper, because when you are farrowing new piglets every day of the week, every week of the year, you have the opportunity to do things like early wean particular litters, gather sows out of farrowing crates maybe a day or two ahead of schedule so you can rebreed them more quickly. You have some flexibility. When you get into batch farrowing, the one most serious restriction is you have to stick to the schedule. And so while initially a person would be concerned that you don't have the flexibility to move sows in or out a day or two early because they need to stay on their schedule, what we have seen after going through a period of time with a batch farrow farm, what we see is the consistency of all sows lactate the appropriate number of days. You don't have the opportunity to pull someone out early just to rebreed them for another group.
Yeah.
When you leave those sows in and everybody gets a full lactation, although it cuts down on the number of litters per sow per year, the litters they produce are actually better quality. In fact, we'll often see a moderate increase in pigs per litter for subsequent litters because every sow has a full lactation now. No sow is getting shortchanged just to meet a breeding target.
The pork industry has a good reputation for using antibiotics responsibly, but there's even more pressure today to use them judiciously. We've got the veterinary feed directive. Everything needs to go through a veterinarian, and that's a good thing. But as I'm hearing you describe this program, it seems like this could go a long way toward not eliminating antibiotic use, but certainly reducing the need.
Certainly not eliminating, but reducing the need through maybe a more targeted application. There certainly may be a reduced need within a sow farm that's in a good batch farrowing program because they don't have carryover disease building up on the herd, because we do eliminate these piglet populations at the end of every month by moving them on to a nursery. In terms of more targeted, judicious application of antibiotic, I think we have the opportunity, if we can take a particular nursery and fill it with a large number of pigs from a limited number of sources. We have not only an opportunity to potentially use less antibiotic, but in the case where any antibiotic is still needed, we have a very tight group, very uniform group of pigs, and the application can be more targeted.
And are there any, I realize that batch farrowing isn't for every farm or every farm size, but where might it be a disadvantage?
The disadvantage may be on on a large farm, if they are already efficiently utilizing what I would call the kind of the accessory parts of the business, like bore studs and transportation, a large farm that weans pigs every 2 or 3 days is going to have a transportation fleet that's staying busy on a regular basis. If that large fleet, or if that large sow farm were to independently say, I'm going to batch farrow, and all my wean pig transportation needs to take place on week 1, then they'll have a transportation fleet that's sitting idle weeks 2, 3, or 4. So in a large farm that's already taking advantage of moving large numbers of pigs into nurseries and filling them on a good tight schedule, then for them to go to batch farrowing, it probably does not apply, because they would have some inefficiencies in not utilizing their bore stud semen supply or their transportation the other weeks. But if we can put small farms together and arrange them appropriately, so you have a small farm that breeds on week 1, another one on week 2, another week 3, and week 4 before you go back and run this cycle over and over. Smaller farms is just much more applicable.
Now, Cargill did a lot of the early work with batch farrowing.
Yes.
You said that you've seen some growth in it over the past 5 years. What's your forecast for the next 5 years? Are we going to see more producers go in this direction?
I do think so. Again, on the farms where it's applicable, so not the 5,000 sow farms, but the 1,000 or the 1,200 head sow farms, I do think we'll see more batch farrowing, because we, from a simple sustainability nature, I think the health advantages that it provides is what's going to drive these small and intermediate sized sow farms to join in the batch farrowing process.
Well, it seems like a sensible strategy and sustainable, as you mentioned as well. We've been talking to David Baumert. He is a technical service veterinarian for Zoetis. David, thanks again.
You're very welcome.